Hi, it's Belle again. I just wanted to show you my Roterfaden because I know these are really expensive and there's not heaps of information about them on the web. So if you have looked around and you haven't found enough details or you're still deciding whether to get one or not, I thought this might help a bit just because they're quite expensive. So it's not the kind of thing you want to go into lightly. So mine is an A5. It's a dark brown leather and it's got the light grey felt on the inside. I got mine from Baumkuchen, I think it's called, and they had pre-made ones, so you can actually get them from the Roterfaden store in Germany. And you can choose the materials and the size, and you can, I think, even get your name on it. But I didn't want to go through all the hassle and waiting for it to come from Germany, so I got one of the pre-made ones that they had. I was happy to have a brown one. I wanted a brown one anyway, and I wanted A5, so that was fine. The only thing that I'm not super happy about, that I probably would have changed if I had got a custom one, is the pen loop. So the pen loop here is just elastic, very thick, very tight elastic. But as you can probably see, so I've got a pen here to show you. This is just like, if I try and put a pen in there, it's really awkward because it's so small and so tight. And because I like to use fountain pens, and in particular, I like to use piston fillers. So I don't really want to go around twisting this knob and letting ink out of my pen. So what I usually do is use the clip on the cap of the pen and just pop that in there. Oh, not like that. In there like that. But then, of course, when you put it down on the table, it clunks. So what I've been doing lately is just popping it on the cover of my Hobonichi, because I'm just carrying it around from my desk to the couch or things like that. So it doesn't really matter that it makes a bit of a bump there. So yeah, I would definitely get a bigger one. I assume this is a small size, and I'm pretty sure they have different sizes if you get it from Roterfaden in Germany. So I was just thinking about that because I did not even think that would be an issue. So that's kind of the only thing that's a bit of a bummer. But otherwise, I was really happy to be able to order it pre-made in the A5 brown, because that's what I would have bought anyway. So mine has 3 clips. You probably already know, if you've already looked up much information about the Roterfaden, that you can customize pretty much everything about it. One of the things is you can choose how many clips you have. So I have 3. There's one missing at the moment in the middle. I didn't even think of this at first, but you can actually just take them out. If I pull this one out, you should be able to see how this just goes flat again. I don't know if you can tell, but that's flat there, just like the middle one. And then if I push this back in, it just pops it out again. So it's quite easy to just pull one out and put it in a drawer somewhere and just keep that part flat. So I just didn't need this one because of how big the books are that I have in there. They take up enough space that I can't put anything extra in. So I just took it out because I wasn't using it, but I always have the chance to use 3 smaller books if I want to. So I like having the three clips or pins, I guess. So I'll show you a bit about what mine has in it, the pockets and stuff, and how I keep mine set up. So you get some pockets at the front. There's one big one here. What I usually do is put my Kindle right here, and I don't usually use it's got an elastic band here that you can use to keep it shut like this, which I do when I'm traveling. I like to take this when I'm traveling because it keeps my journal and my Kindle and a pen, everything all together. So I like to do that when I'm traveling, but otherwise I don't use it around the house. I just keep it folded over on the back here, just like that. And just carry it with 2 hands like that so that it stays shut. So because it doesn't matter about how fat it is on the top, I can put my Kindle there and have it shut, and it doesn't matter that it adds a little bit of extra bulk here. So that's what I normally do. Just put my Kindle just in this pocket there. And then there are 2 smaller pockets here. I've just got some little bookmarks in there that I got from the Hobonichi store. Little magnetic bookmarks and some book darts. It's a good spot for putting things like paper clips or, I don't know, stamps or something, if you want to put them in there, like postage stamps, I mean, or stickers, that kind of thing. And then at the back there's a big pocket here. So this one, I've heard a lot of people put a mini iPad in. And I thought it would probably fit something A5, but it's actually a bit smaller than the full A5 cover, so it doesn't fit an A5 notebook. What I was hoping is I could put kind of the back, well I actually have this one, so just a letter writing pad. So I thought I'd put the back in here, and this would sit over the front. And I've seen people do that also, but it doesn't fit because this is an A5 and this is a little bit smaller. So I can't put that in there, but what I do put in here is just letters, things like bills. I've got a ticket there that I want to put in my journal that I need to cut up and stick in, letters that need replying to, sometimes bills that need paying, that kind of thing, any kind of paperwork that I want to keep on hand because I need to deal with it, I put in there just because it's a handy way to keep them all together and always with me. So this is just a Tomo River writing pad. It's super thin because of, well, there's not much in it, but also the Tomo River paper is so thin. So even though I can't put it in there, I like keeping it with all this stuff. So I just usually sit it there and just carry it around like that, even though it's not really secured in there. So the two books I have, obviously the Hobonichi is in there. So if we look from the top, this here is my Hobonichi. That's the Navek, so that's why it's so thin, it's half the size. And then this one here is my 7 Seas Crossfield. So for a while I only had the 7 Seas Crossfield in there, which is why I got the A5 size, the cousin A5 Hobonichi, because I didn't want to have an A6 and have to have another cover for that and be carrying around lots of things. I like to carry as few things as possible, so getting the Avec was great because it's just thin enough to fit in here with the 7 Seas Crossfield so that I can carry it all together. So I just have this, I've just guessed about roughly halfway, and I have the two pins there, which you've probably seen. These are, people talk about this quite a bit because this is the main part of what's cool about the system, but basically they kind of spring up like that, and you can pull them out just like you saw me pull it out at the back there. So you pull them out, push them in. So what you can do is pull them out a bit. If you have a big book, it can be easier to pull them out like that and get the book lined up. And you can put them both in like this and then push them in like that. Some people, what they do, especially with the bigger Hobonichis, the full Hobonichi cover, not the Avec, which is double this thickness, what they'll do is they'll use two different pins on the same book and they'll use them kind of as bookmarks. So rather than going right here in the middle, which is what I tend to do, they'll put one, for instance, on today's page, so maybe here, and then they'll put another one on today's month, so here. So it's held in with two pins at two different spots, but it makes it easy to flip open to the current page. I think that's a pretty cool idea. But with my Avec being so small, it would be a bit awkward to add a second pin because, so you can see that tiny, tiny little gap there is where the second pin would go. And really, I don't know if you can tell, but the middle of that is basically where these two books stop, or kind of a little bit into that crossfield. It's really not lined up with the Avec, so it would be a bit too awkward to make that work. But if you had the big, so this 7 Seas Crossfield is probably a similar size to the Hobonichi cousin. Maybe it's a little fatter, but it's pretty similar, I think. So you can imagine with this one, there's enough room that if I had a second pin there, it would fit just in the front of this book. So if that was a Hobonichi cousin, I could fit it at the front where the current month is, and this one could be on the current day. So it would work pretty well, I think, if you had the full cousin. So anyway, I just put my pins about in the middle here to hold that one in. And I find it's really secure. I haven't had any issues with it seeming to move. I tend to kind of, just because I'm someone who fiddles a lot, I often push these in because I feel like, oh, they're coming out a tiny bit. But I mean, it's never enough to worry about. It's more just me fiddling. So I haven't had any issues with that at all. And it can still lay flat, obviously. It's a little bit awkward that one of these books is a lot bigger than the other. This one's a lot fatter than the Hobonichi. So you can see that this is kind of basically flat. I mean, it's flat enough to write on, but then you've got this kind of a little bit of a hill there because this one's thinner. So it probably makes more sense to have 2 or 3 books that are the same thickness, I suppose. But the good thing is you can do whatever you want with this, which is why I like it. So that's in between the two books, so you can see the spine there. So that's where the third pin would go, straight down there. So this is the 7 Seas crossfield, so you can see that it's got no kind of markings or anything, but it's a really nice looking cover. It's just cardboard, just like the Hobonichi, and it's just plain, kind of like a dot grid, but they're tiny little crosses, which is why it's called the crossfield. So this is what I use for my journal, and this is just amazing. Highly recommended. Super expensive and the shipping's crazy, just like a Hobonichi, but I love it. It's the best notebook I've ever had. So I've got my pins just in the middle of that one again, just there. I just guess where the middle is pretty much, get it close enough, and you can see how fat that book is if I put it together. That's quite a hefty book. That's a really fat book. But these pins don't have any issues holding it in, so that's really cool. It always feels really secure. I don't feel like there are any issues with that, which is cool. And then, yeah, at the back, this little notepad just sits there, and I just hold it in like that. And that's pretty much it, I think. Mine just says Roterfaden on the back, but I think a lot of people kind of get their names put on the cover when they get a customized one. Yeah, I think that's about all I can think of to show you, but if you have any questions about it or anything in particular that you want to see that I didn't show you, just let me know and I can do another video or do some pictures, or you know, compare it to something else I have if you're not sure about the size. But yeah, so that's the A5, and you can get the A6 as well. I would probably get an A6 Roterfaden to put a Hobonichi in if it were me. I like them a bit more than the Hobonichi covers, but they're not that different really, and probably more expensive. They cost a lot, but I think it's going to last a long time, so I'm happy with it. Yeah, hopefully that answered some questions and was useful.